And we're live. Hello. Hello, everybody. I'm not sure if anyone has joined yet, but in the future, when someone's rewatching this, hello and welcome to the Diviners Club live show for Lair of Dreams. So excited to be joined by the wonderful Emma from Emma Books and Sarah from Sarah Without an H, whose birthday it is today. Exciting time.
Happy birthday, Sarah.
Yeah. So excited to discuss all things Lair of Dreams with you guys.
We're having a birthday party at the Diviners Club.
What a dream.
Although, would you really want to be alive during the 1920s? I feel like we'd be a little oppressed.
Fair.
Fun. But, yeah, I feel like it would be fun, but after that, not sure about that.
Yeah. I probably would not have the greatest time.
Yeah.
But it'd be cool. Just like hop in, hop out.
Yes, just for like the decade and then skedaddle on out of there.
But yeah, I'm excited to talk about this book with you guys, especially because for all of us, it's a reread.
Yes.
And so really excited to just hear just what the experience was like for rereading this book. Mm-hmm. So I guess, do we maybe want to start there?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So yeah, I mean, what was your opinion upon, I guess, your first read of it versus this read? Has it changed?
I don't think my thoughts have changed. If anything, I just think I have a greater appreciation for it. Because the first time I read Lair of Dreams, actually the reason I picked it up is because I met Libba Bray with Sarah. We were in line, and that's when I was like, oh, I need to pick up the audiobook of Lair of Dreams. So the first time I read it, I was like very much in a Diviner's mood. But yeah, rereading it, I think this time I just had a greater appreciation for more of the characters. I was like very Evie, Sam, Theta, and Henry focused, or even just like Theta focused by first read. And then since rereading the series, I'm much more invested in the stories of Memphis and Mabel and Ling and Henry. So I have like a deeper connection with the characters, which made it even more enjoyable, and also a greater appreciation for the various themes throughout the story.
Right. Yeah, I think the first time I read it, I know I gave it 5 stars because I remember not loving the plot. Are we staying non-spoiler right now?
Yeah, I think we can stay non-spoiler for now.
Okay. So the plot with the sleeping sickness and stuff, obviously that's not spoiler. I remember not liking that the first time I read it. And I did enjoy like Ling and Henry and like all the getting more of all the characters, and like, you know, the mystery starts to like evolve more. But I don't remember. I remember just not really loving the whole like going into the dreams and stuff. And now when I read it this time, like I was much more invested in that story. So it was interesting to see that I was like appreciating all aspects more.
Yeah. I agree. I have the same feelings as you guys. I think for me, like going into it, my expectations were to have basically another Diviners, in the sense that like I thought it was going to be like another like pretty scary story. Mm-hmm. And I think like the shift in character at the time, at least for me, was like, I think like I was still pretty early in like being able to like shift through that many characters.
Right.
And so that was hard for me too. And I was like, wait, who's this new character? I just want to be with Evie and Sam. So I think like in my initial read, I remember always saying that it was like my least favorite of the 3 so far. But now after reading it, it might be a new, I don't know if I would say number 1 favorite, because the 3rd one is so good. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it definitely surpassed how I used to feel about it. And especially like what you were saying, Sarah, with like the plot and the dream walking stuff that I like didn't appreciate that first read, but now I just love.
Yeah, totally agree with you, Monica. With the whole, it really is a shift from the scary, like super like ghost story in the beginning, and it transforms a bit with Lair of Dreams, and I like that. I think a lot of people shy away from the Diviners because they're like, oh my God, I'm such a scaredy cat. Like, I'm afraid to read it. But I think like it's pretty central to like at least the first book. And then in Lair of Dreams, I think it lightens up a little bit. and it gets a little bit more complex than spooky.
Yeah. Sabrina, here I can add it to the.
Yeah.
Oh, so fancy. Sabrina said that it was her first read and that she liked it better than the first, which I think is really interesting. That's now how I feel. That's how I feel now. And I wasn't sure if it was because it was a reread or if like maybe just like advancing as readers. I don't know. But yeah, I like it a lot.
Yeah, Austin actually said that too.
Yeah.
Reading with us?
What?
Is he reading it with us?
Yeah, he is. Yeah. He was like, oh, because I just asked him his opinion, like without like telling him what I thought, and he was like, oh no, I like it way more. But I think it's because like it's very character driven, and you get to learn a lot more about the characters and stuff, and it's like just like a fanciful web of mystery.
I also weirdly found it scarier and more suspenseful this time around.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I read it, I was like, this isn't scary. The first one was so much scarier. And now like that I've read both again, I'm like, wait, this is so much more suspenseful and like scary.
Right.
Yeah, I thought the ending was especially like with everything with the ghost. I can't remember her name.
Oh.
Well, okay, are we going to
the whole ending, huh?
If I say her name, then we're going spoilers now.
Oh, I feel like we can jump to spoilers.
Okay. Just so everybody knows this is spoilers now.
Yes. That whole ending, like I was a little spooked during that. Is what?
I was gonna say the first time I read it, I was kind of like I remember the first time I figured out that May was the woman like pretty early on. I think it's because when you listen to the audiobook, I mean it's not generally the voice fault, but like when she does the voice of the ghost and the voice of May, I was like,
yeah.
And May was just so suspicious. She was just like, yeah, I'm just like always like hanging out in this dream world.
Yeah.
But I remember the first time I just like wasn't as invested in May, and now this time reading it, I'm like, wow, that's like that's so sad that happened. Like it's sad too because that didn't just happen to women then being sold, but like that happens to women now. Like that's sex like a thing, and so like it just made me really sad. Like I don't know. I just feel like the second book delves even more into like some of the issues that get mentioned in the first. Yeah. Also, okay, I know this is going to make me sound super uneducated, but this made me start thinking that I don't know enough about like Asian history of like Asian Americans, that where were Asian Americans during all the history things that I know? Like obviously I know like in the 60s with like civil rights and stuff, but I'm like obviously that would affect all people of color. So like anyone who's, I mean obviously African American, but Asian American and so on and so forth. But I was like, I just started like thinking, I was like, wow, I don't think I know anything about history. Like they only really teach us like white, black.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like that's really interesting to think about.
Yeah, there's a lot.
There's so much history books.
There's this one book that, I mean, who's the name of the author? There's this author who does like she does only historical fiction about Asian people.
Oh yeah. What's her name?
And I'm blanking on her name.
Isn't there like a book with a cage on the cover or something?
Sure.
I thought I got you one for your birthday a couple years
ago. Yeah, you did.
What is her name? Yeah, I honestly should read that because I feel like the only thing I can think of in history that I know about is like Japanese internment camps. But beyond that, I'm like,
yeah, same.
I need to read up on it because I was like, where was everybody?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is wild, especially like if you like digging into like America's history with like just even like what was considered a race or like what was considered white, because like I think it was like Italian and Irish like weren't considered white initially.
Oh wow,
and so even like that history is like wild to read about.
Right. Which I know a little bit more about like that and like those kind of immigrants, but I think I was like, wow, I just feel like school really gave me only one track as far as history.
It's actually been interesting because I'm doing this like personal project of trying to read like a book from the 1920s every month this year. And the one thing that like I have like it's been impossible for me to find a single book written by an Asian person because like which was surprising to me because I was like, I feel like that would exist, but the earliest one I could find, like an Asian American person, obviously from like other countries, there are novels, there are books, but from an Asian American person, like one of the earliest ones I could find is like 1937.
Wow.
So yeah, it's weird America.
America.
All right, so we talked first read versus reread. Shall we continue our discussion from last time of Sam versus Jericho?
Yes.
How is everyone feeling?
More. Yeah, this is more Sam. Like I don't know. What's weird is I know for a fact the first time I read these books, I was into Jericho because I feel like me and Emma talked about it once, and she was like, "Ooh, Sam," and I was like,
Yeah, oh my God, I remember that.
And now I'm like, why would you ever think that? Obviously, after reading the third book, no spoilers, but after reading the third book, I was Team Sam. But like, I just feel like I'm like Jericho just wants Evie because she's his manic pixie dream girl.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, she makes him more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that, like, upon this reread, I find Jericho, not that I am Team Jericho, but I like feel for him more.
I feel
like this whole reread experience has just been like me feeling more empathy for all these characters. Didn't feel a ton of empathy for at first, or didn't love so much as first, or didn't appreciate as much, and like I definitely like feel more of like Jericho's nuance. I feel like my first read, I was just like, please just leave so it can be Sam and Evie. And so, but I love Sam so much.
Yeah, I love the whole fake engagement storyline. Like, that's just so fun.
Yeah.
The post office scene, and when they're investigating for Project Buffalo, the scene where he saves her from being shot. Like, there's so many amazing Sam and Evie moments, and I cherished them during this reread. I love it so much, and I really like getting to watch them actually develop feelings for one another, because they flirt a lot and they have a lot of chemistry in book one, but they both have a lot of very vulnerable moments when they're thinking about each other, and I like watching them soften up to each other, and they really are like one of my like top OTPs of all time. I love them together so much.
I do like them together a lot.
They're whole,
I think something about Evie is that I think the reason she still considers Jericho is because she's young and like to have two really attractive. Like, I think Liv Bray writes that in at one point where Evie's like, "Ooh, two guys interested in me." Ooh.
I also think that like for Evie, like Jericho is kind of like this version of herself that she kind of I feel like a part of Evie is like she wants so desperately to be taken seriously.
True.
And Jericho kind of represents that, like someone who is like going to take her seriously. I mean, obviously Sam takes her seriously, but it's just like a different kind of guy. And I feel like that is sort of like one of her biggest insecurities is people thinking that she's just like this flighty flapper and, you know, wanting to like be a flapper and like live that life, but also like being frustrated that people don't take her seriously or don't take her like see her as like a full person. I feel like a lot of the time.
Someone said, how do you guys feel about Evie not being the main character in the sequel?
I mean, I love Evie, so I loved her being the main character in the Diviners. But I really appreciated the way that things sort of evened out. I feel like the Diviners was very much focused on Evie, Sam, and Memphis, maybe Jericho too. But in this one, we get so much more of Henry and Ling, and I think it just helps balance the book out more. And I especially think it gives it a wider appeal because I know a lot of people don't like Evie.
Right.
We have like more characters for people to get invested in that are really amazing characters. I like that it opens up.
Yeah. This was something that like my first read, I remember not so like obviously I was like appreciative of Ling's character and her story because like it was the first time where I had read a book that featured an Asian protagonist in the 1920s and actually talked about like what that timeline was like or that time period was like for people who were Asian. And so I really liked that just as an Asian person and as a reader, but I really loved Evie, and I was just like, but what about Evie and Sam? And I definitely did not feel that as much this time. Like I really appreciated like just everything about Ling's character so much more. And especially with Henry and her friendship with Henry. I just feel like it resonated so much more with me now. I think like maybe that I've grown up a bit. But yeah, it just like everything that happened with them, I just thought was like so fun at times and interesting. And I was like so invested in Henry's story. And I still think like Evie is definitely like probably the three main characters would be like Henry, Evie, and Ling. So she's still there a lot. Whereas like in my head, I feel like I had this perception that like Evie was kind of missing from this book. And I definitely didn't feel that as much upon this reread, which I was happy about.
Right.
That's good.
Yeah, I feel like it didn't really bother me. I don't remember even really being bothered the first time I read it either. I think like in my opinion, Libba Bray does it so seamlessly where she kind of like if you read the dust jacket of the first book, it's like Evie O'Neill and it like makes it like it's about Evie. But as you read the series, it's really not like yes, Evie's the main character, but she's not the main character. I feel like it really like Libba Bray intended it to be a cast of characters. And I also think like someone mentioned that Evie was a little bit stagnant in this book, but I feel like that was again, I also feel like that was intentional because she went through something really traumatic in the first book, and so that the whole book is her trying to pretend that she's okay. And so it's not until like the end of the book where like she's finally like, I just want to have a good time the whole time because I'm like really upset and traumatized by what happened to me before.
Yeah,
I agree. It kind of reminded me of Harry Potter a bit in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people feel that way about Harry too in some of the later books with like the way that he acts, and I kind of feel like she definitely has a bit of that like slight chosen one syndrome.
Right.
But yeah, I feel like a lot of this book is her like not dealing with her trauma. I actually related a lot to it, like not in what she's dealing with, but I feel like we deal with things similarly in that it's very like, okay, well, let's just focus on right now. Who cares about tomorrow? Who cares about anything else? Yeah, so I liked her character. I do think that like her character is very frustrating in this book, but I think perfectly so.
Right. Like she just keeps refusing to take anything seriously.
Yeah. I do agree with this though. I missed Memphis a lot in this book.
I forgot how much he's not in this one. Like he did it a lot in the first, and then in my mind, because there's stayed in Memphis stuff in the second book, he was in it. And I think I'm also like thinking about things that happened in the third book, but I was like, where is Memphis?
Yeah, I didn't appreciate Memphis enough in my first read of the Diviners, and I like him so much in the subsequent books and my past rereads, and I so appreciated him in this reread of the Diviners, but I thought he was missing a little bit from Lair of Dreams.
Yeah, I wanted more like fun moments with Memphis because I feel like that's like a lot of the moments in this book. What?
It's always so heavy with him.
Yeah, I'm always so stressed when I'm reading Memphis scenes. And I'm like, put some like.
Honestly, Ling scenes stress me out too. I mean, I think that's just prevalent of like race and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was getting really stressed in Ling scenes when they were having like banning people from or barring people from like leaving Chinatown and stuff, and I was just getting really stressed out that like, and then when they were like, your dad can't find his papers, I was like, oh god, what's gonna happen?
Yeah.
And when the guys are like harassing her and she goes in the street and Henry saves her, like that's like a really graphic scene for me in my mind, because I just feel so horrible for her, but it makes me so happy that like Henry is there to help her. And doesn't he get her like hot chocolate afterwards? Like it's a really sweet moment between them.
Yeah. I love their friendship so much. I don't think that like connected with me as much the first time I read it.
Right.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things about Lair of Dreams. after noticing this reread. It was so good.
Actually, you know how everybody says that Evie's annoying? If I had to pick, I'd actually say I like Ling, but I'd actually have to say Ling is the most annoying character. Like, I was just like, Ling, can you just joke around for 30 seconds? Like, can you be serious?
I agree. But I also for me, I think the most annoying character is Mabel.
No, I love Mabel. People also said he didn't like Mabel. And I was like, I love her.
It's like the two really smart ones, which I feel a bit bad about. The two most level-headed characters, and I'm like, I like the chaotic one.
Yes.
Who make no good choices.
Unpack here, guys. I remember talking with Sarah about Mabel, how she loves Mabel. And I hated Mabel the first time I read the series, and then I didn't like her until the very end of Before the Devil Breaks In.
Like, okay.
Poor Mabel.
I like her. And I feel so bad for her with the way that she's treated.
Yeah.
By
Evie really is a very bad friend to her.
Is such a bad friend.
Non-stop. And
I liked these two comments. Sam and just about anybody's guaranteed to be hilarious. And then also I love Jericho and Sam's bickering brother relationship. This is the one thing that I love so much in this book. I wish we got more of just Sam and Jericho annoying each other.
Right.
And that's a skill.
Yeah. I honestly think I liked them together more, their scenes together. I mean, obviously I love everything with Sam and Evie, but Sam and Jericho's scenes together, I just I don't know. I just loved, I think because Jericho's so stoic, it's nice to have someone really poke at it.
Right.
Yeah, they sort of balance each other out a little bit.
Yeah. And get Jericho to have a little bit of fun.
Yes. So serious.
Let me see.
Yeah, and how he calls Jericho Freddie. I love that. And now he's just always like, don't call me Freddie.
Oh, this is funny. This is probably mean, but I didn't miss Will at all.
I kind of forgot he was missing.
Same.
Okay, there was a chapter, and
he was mentioned. It was his perspective.
It was so weird. I was like, wait, I completely what is he doing in this book?
Yeah.
He's traveling around with Sister Walker, going to find diviners. So you know how the Batman and Sue are traveling around to hurt diviners? They're traveling around to find diviners and help them. Right. And so that's why that one scene is he's talking to a little girl about her ability to do something after he is. And then she talks about how she saw all the ghosts coming.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, because I remember reading that chapter and I was like, wait, have I just not been paying attention at all? It was very bizarre. But yeah, I didn't miss him as much either.
All the chapters with the bad men and the men in black, call them, is really, those scenes stress me out too.
They're very, I forgot about those entire, I knew that there was this government layer to it, but I forgot about those two. Specifically.
Yeah, I forgot that they had their own perspective and
this is why Mabel's smart, because Mabel's the only one that noticed them following everybody, and she was like, I'm gonna get their name and look at their license plate. She
really is the smartest. I feel for her.
In a big pick, because she's supposed to represent not everybody has that effervescent, bubbly, over the top personality Evie or Beta or whoever. And so I think the point is that she is just as important as a woman.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. There was one that I wanted to bring up. Oh, yes, this one. The fact that diviners paralleling stuff that's happening today is so scary. I agree. I feel Libba Bray is a diviner herself. Because it's terrifying, how much all of this is exactly what's happening today. And I would find it really interesting to talk to her about her thought process about because this was years ago this book came out, and I feel in a lot of ways she, I guess maybe it's just showing how much history continues to repeat itself, but how much she kind of predicted of what would be what would be happening today even more intensely, which is horrifying.
Mm-hmm.
But like, even I think what's so interesting in this book is like the rise of like sort of scary Christianity, and like using Christianity to like get people to act a certain way, to conform, to like just to like, what's the word, mistrust like certain groups of people. Yeah, I find like just even all of that stuff and the way that she like weaves that all in is like so freaking masterfully done and just wild to me, but also terrifying.
Yeah. How do you guys feel about, what's her name? Sarah Snow?
Yeah, Sarah Snow.
How do you guys feel about her?
Is she like that Caitlin Bennett girl?
Yeah.
Like,
Honestly,
she's basically the equivalent of like InfoWars, right? Like,
she's not great. She was fine for most of the book. Like, I feel like Sarah Snow's character was meant to, like, in the beginning, she really was just using her radio show to, like, be, like, godly or whatever. Yeah. And then at the end, she turns it into, like, American propaganda, which is kind of like, and now everybody's, like, obsessed with her. And I'm like,
yeah. So, like, maybe she's more of a Megyn Kelly to make it softer.
Yeah, I would say. I don't know. Caitlin, I don't know. But
I got what you were talking about.
But yeah, like, it's wild that, like, even back then, like, using sort of this like girl who sort of seems like a pop culture-y, relevant girl, but having her like spout off these things that are like very harmful.
Right.
Scary times.
Yeah. How do you guys like Evie's radio show? Because when I reread it, like I started to just like how fabricated it was. Like in the beginning, I think it's like such a fun idea, and then when you find out that she's basically just like telling people like the fun light stuff and doing the soap promotion, I'm like, this is actually like not fun and kind of like sad.
Also, Sam was like, you might as well just pretend, like, because you actually do have the power, but you're lying to people, so it's like you don't have the power.
Yeah. That's so cute.
I don't remember what happens in the third book, but I feel like she loses the radio show. I mean, obviously, I don't know, so that's not a spoiler. I just genuinely don't remember. But I feel like the radio show is not, like, her radio show is not a big part of the third book. I can't remember what happens.
I can't remember either.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I'll be surprised. Oh my god, in the Lair of Dreams, there were so many scenes. So after, like, Will and Sister Walker like came back and like found them all at the museum together, in my memory, that's where the book ended. And there was like so many scenes after that I was like, oh, I forgot that Miriam is here. I forgot all of it.
Yeah, I love that Miriam at the end. That's a good ending. I love that.
It's wild. I remember reading that ending the first time and just being like, just like losing my mind. They had all finally come together.
Mm-hmm. It was wild.
It was. I don't know if I like felt anything about Evie's radio show, to be honest. I feel like I was just sort of like, I feel like those are the parts that I didn't really care that much about either. Like I don't think they really added a lot for me, except the fact that like I liked that Evie at least got her taste of fame.
Yeah,
that's
like what she wanted from the beginning.
She got that fulfillment. She got to experience it at least.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot.
Looking for. Oh yes, I know nobody else in this chat cares about this except for me, but I also love it.
I feel like I noticed the name. Does it say Gemma Doyle at some point in the book?
No, so it's in the mail, the post office.
Yeah,
Gemma Doyle is there. She's like she's either trying to get mail or someone is getting mail from Gemma Doyle.
Yeah, it's like it says Gemma Doyle in the book.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I picked up on that. I haven't read the book, so I don't know the significance, but I was like, hey, that's the Live of Ray series.
I'm so excited though, because I know she's continuing that or she's doing a spin-off or something, the Gemma Doyle series. So I'm just very interested to see like where it's going to take place, if it's going to be connected to any of these diviners, all that sort of stuff.
That's the A Great and Terrible Beauty series, right?
Mm-hmm.
I really want to read that one.
I wasn't a big fan, but we'll
I
see what you can break the tie and see if it's good or bad.
I guess this is kind of what we've talked a little bit about, but I mean, do you guys want to talk a little bit more about how you feel about the historical aspects of the story?
I love it.
I love it. I think it's really educational.
So, like, it feels so authentic and real.
Yeah.
And I feel like it really captures so many different aspects of that time in a really complete way. You know, I feel like people look at I feel like we said this, or at least the three of us have talked about it. How like people look at the Diviners and think it's just like this like ooh glitzy, like old YA paranormal 1920s fun, spooky, scary story, but all the history of it, of the immigration and the xenophobia within it, and how immigrants are treated, the eugenics. There's all so many layers to it.
I agree.
It's so good.
Yeah. I mean, I can only speak to like the Asian rep in it, but like that I think is so incredibly well done.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like so meaningful for me, just like what she introduces in it, like things I just had never thought to like look into.
Yeah.
And I just like, I really appreciate that she put such an effort into making her stories like so inclusive and like, you know, taking, you know, she wanted to write this like epic story about the American dream. And then with that, knowing that she had a responsibility to then include not just like what we usually see for like 1920s stories or like American stories, which is just like white people, like white able-bodied straight people. Like, we really made sure that like it was a very diverse group of people and that they were all like extremely full, interesting characters. And she does such a good job of that, where like every single character feels so real to me. So yeah, I love it. And I like, for me, I think it is like her series is like truly a masterpiece. If I was like still in school, this would be like a series I want to write about. Like just her depiction of like the ghosts of America and the American dream and all of that is like, well, everything.
Yeah, I literally like whenever I read and reread the Diviners or any of the books, I'm just like, I feel like I like have so few negative things to say about it. Like, yeah.
I can't really think if I was like gonna like complain about anything in the books. Like,
I don't like Jericho.
But I mean, I do agree with Monica that I appreciate aspects of his character.
Yeah,
I feel like every single character, regardless of my like, if I was gonna rank them, I feel for them in some way. Like, I think Libba Bray does a really good job of like talking about their hopes and their dreams and their fears and like what makes them. I guess the only thing I would complain about is I don't like this happens with a lot of YA series, kind of like Six of Crows and all that. I just don't. These characters don't read 17 to me. Like they read kind of young, but like to me they read like early 20s, like not 17, 18. Like they read like, a little older for me. Like I picture them more being anywhere from like 20 to 23. Like that's and I mean that, but that's really common in YA that the characters read older and then, but they're not.
I want to think like the time period.
Yeah.
True.
That's how I try and explain it too. Is like I feel like the time period, like teenagers who lived in Manhattan, like would be like going out like that, you know?
Because I was like thinking, I was like, I mean, Evie got tutored for like 3 seconds by Will, but none of these kids go to school.
Yeah. Yeah, Theta. Also, yeah, Evie also reads like a teen to me. I feel like Evie is like the most teenager.
She does, but she reads early 20s to me because I feel like women I guess women in their early 20s, like when I was 20, I acted like Evie. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like people in their early 20s can act that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like her like impetuous kind of personality and attitude is not singular to teenagers.
That's true.
I agree. I liked this comment about how like history is woven through the whole story. Even like the when she does those sort of like atmospheric asides that are just sort of like talking about people falling asleep. I don't know, like those moments throughout the book, like the way that she weaves like New York City and American history through it, I think is like
right. I love that too because all the different people who like fell victim to the sleeping sickness all had like different, also like different. I feel like a lot of it is hopes and dreams and fears and that sort of thing. And like, there's even that like Wall Street guy that she talks about where he just lost all his money gambling because he was not as like wealthy as like the people that he works with. And like, I feel like that plays into capitalism and stuff. And so I found that really interesting. And then there was those guys that go down into the tunnel and like one of them speaks Spanish because his wife is like, speaks Spanish, but like he I think he's like black or something. I don't know. She just weaves like lots of, and then I think one guy was like Italian, so like it weaves all that stuff together. Or at the very beginning, that guy that was from China and talking about how he can't bring, like he got a job and then he knew that they should do something with the bone. Like honestly, if he had just spoken up and said, "Hey, we need to like honor these bones and like bury them," he probably would have everything. But then he's fine.
Gone differently.
Like in the first book, those teens had just not touched that Ouija board.
Right.
Alas. Let me look.
Oh, you know what we haven't talked about? We haven't talked about Henry and Louis.
I cried this time. I think I cried the last time too, but it was just
oh my heart.
I forgot that Louis is the one that tells him like, "Hey, Shy, I remember." I don't know if that's how he said it, Shy. They said it in that like Louisiana accent. He's like, "I have to tell you, I remembered something," and I was like,
like knowing what was coming this time around was
Did
you guys know the first time? Because I can't remember if I figured it out or not.
I did.
I don't think I did.
I don't think I did either. You did?
I did because I think I knew because there's that scene where Ling is like, "Oh, ghosts shimmer around the edges," and then like it's like Louis shimmered in the sun, and I'm like, I remember having a feeling because also when it talks about like some men came to talk to him, and then I started being like, "Oh, I think like something happened to him." I don't remember how much I knew the first time, but I remember I was suspicious that Waimei was the woman and that Louis was dead. I remember kind of, but I'm also like that when I read because I read a lot of thrillers and stuff, and my mom's like that. I've always kind of been able to guess plots.
Yeah. I do like the end for Henry still, like not leaving it as like him being heartbroken, but that you get to see like I forget the other guy's name, but they introduced that character.
Yeah, David.
What was it?
David.
David, was it?
I'm gonna say it confidently, but I don't know, but I think it is.
Yeah.
Also, imagine navigating that, like being gay in that time period, and you have to make sure to ask like a special question.
Yeah, I think like he does.
Been to this club.
Yeah.
Well, I think she does a good job of like weaving like just all of this history. This like American history that we're definitely not taught in America, at least.
Right.
But there's a question.
Do you think it was a specific choice that Naughty John was only in book 1, but then the man in the stovepipe had was interval with the next 3 books? Yeah, I noticed that this time around. I found it really interesting because Naughty John was like so present in book 1, and then it like completely shifts from book 2.
Yeah.
So Alston actually provided me with some important information. I kind of had obviously a lot of Libba Bray's writing is based on like research and stuff. So the man in the stovepipe hat actually is folklore. Like that man appearing in people's dreams and stuff, and so seeing a man in a stovepipe hat is actually a thing.
I didn't know this.
Yeah.
It's
kind of like Slender Man, like that kind of thing. Or like when you see like sleep paralysis demons. So it's like a thing. And so I don't think it's weird because if you remember he is going to be throughout, like he is like a formidable foe. So to me, he's like the boss at the end of the book, and like every little ghost they've dealt with along the way is like leading them to like the boss at the end of the video game.
I agree. And I kind of feel like each ghost that they deal with sort of represents something else. So like with this one, I feel like they're each different examples of just like the American dream being a lie, but especially with like Ling and just like even like the introduction of Asian immigrants in this book, because like so much of like Asian history is like laced with this idea of like seeing America as this like golden place, of opportunity, and like you go to America and like you made it, and how that is for a lot of Asian people who actually did end up going to America was like not the experience that they had. And so I feel like that was such a big part of this book. And then like the first one was really sort of looking at the way that like America preyed on those like hopes that people had.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And then the third one is a whole other thing that we'll talk about in the next live show.
Right.
Remember who the ghost is in. I feel like I don't remember a lot about Before the Devil Breaks You, so I'm very interested for this reread.
I remember the really big stuff that happens. Like, I feel like my memory is mostly like middle and end of the book of that. Like, but I can't remember. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I can't remember because it's such a big book too. It's weird. Like, I remembered most of the first and second book, and I remember the really important parts of the third book, but I don't remember like everything that happens.
Yeah. I remember breaking down reading it.
Yes.
Because it was like, I think it was like right after the election when it came out.
Right.
And it was like, it is very topical. And I just remember like bawling for a good chunk of it, and especially in her author's note. That's really my main remembrance. I also remember being terrified. Like I recall finding the third one frightening.
It's got some spooky scenes in it.
It does. Not even like that they're horrifying, but the lead up to all of them is so stressful.
If anyone misses the spookiness from book one, I definitely think it comes back a little bit in book three.
I'm the spookiness, so I'm excited for the reread.
Oh, here's one. I'm gonna talk about Henry and Theta.
Oh, I just love them so much. They have like the best like brother-sister friendship ever. They're adorable. I love how supportive Theta is of Henry. Like how Henry makes like the decision to take his piano money to buy Louis' ticket. Louis obviously doesn't come. And she just like so easily forgives him because like she gets him and he supports her, and I love them together.
I'm a little stressed out for Henry. Like, I also don't remember this from the third book, but I'm like, how is he going to make money?
Yeah. Oh my God. When he quit, I was so stressed out for him.
I was like, how will you pay?
Yeah. I also like that like they show friction in their relationship too.
Yeah.
And they show them working through that.
Yeah, like how Theta tries so hard to protect Henry from not dream walking too much, and he just like refuses to listen to her, and she's really concerned. Like all that frustration and tension came across really well.
Yeah, exactly.
I kept forgetting that not everybody knows each other until the very end of this book. Like they all meet Memphis.
Sorry. I got really excited because that's something that I also noticed. I was like, it's really weird how we are so invested in all these storylines and all these characters, and like they don't really meet up. They're all like interconnected, but they aren't all together until the end.
Like nobody but Henry knows Ling until the very end of the book, and that's weird to me.
Yeah, that is wild. Or even like in the first one, I think when Memphis shows up at the museum and everyone, the people there are like, who is this person? And Memphis is like, I can't trust them, I have to run. And I'm like, you're all friends. You should be.
And then they have the funeral for Memphis's friend, and then Theta's there, and then Evie's there, and then they're like,
yeah.
The dots.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then when Sister Walker walks in, Memphis is like, hey, what's going on?
What are you doing here?
Oh my God, what are your guys' thoughts about Blind Bill in this book?
Oh, it's hard. Okay, so like I love his character because I think that he represents like a real thing that's happening in the US. And I feel for him. Like he lived through such horrible things. And so like, not that I think anything he does is justified, obviously, but I also am just like, but why can't Memphis just try and cure him? Like,
yeah, Memphis is going to be so weird about his powers. I mean, yeah, like maybe if he finds out like what he did to Isaiah, he will not want to heal him. But right now, Bill seems like a nice guy.
Yeah.
But also, Bill's very entitled. Like Bill's like, I deserve to be healed, and I'm like,
Yeah, I don't like his attitude.
strong words,
But
strong
I
words.
feel like he does deserve to be healed.
Okay, I get it. No,
But
okay,
he deserves like
true.
he
True.
deserves like retribution for like what he went through.
Yeah.
That is true. You're right. But I just sometimes his narrative, like the way he thinks about things, is like a little bit frustrating to me. Okay, also something I discovered in this book because of Addie, when she talks about her old love, I forget his name, the one that came back as a ghost, and then she had to like lock him away because like she like remember she vowed her life to the stovepipe hat man.
Yeah.
Yeah, Addie. So remember she like it flashes back to when she was 16 and her beau died in the war, which made me. This is where I'm getting. When was the Civil War? I'm having a moment where I was like, was that recent? Was that like 18 something?
I mean, I think they're very old.
They're very old, but I'm like, but then that's making me wonder because remember you mentioned last time I was like, was Bill a slave before he became a free person? I'm trying to think like
Because remember, in this book, he was he's really young. He just looks really old.
You're right. So it's 1920, and if he's like 35, then no, it doesn't line up. Sorry, but because
really throws me off.
her beau dying in like the Civil War, I was like, I don't know what's happening in history.
Everything about Bill, like even like because I think part of it is also the audiobook because the narration is done where like I just picture Bill as like 80.
Yes.
And so it's like hard to remember that he is not. He's like pretty
He
young.
must not look that old though, because on what is her name? On Octavia.
Yeah.
She's like digging him. She's like trying to date him.
She is. I also picture her as very old too, though.
That's true.
Yeah,
Also, question. Listening to the audiobook, did Aunt Octavia have a Jamaican accent? Or no, sorry, not Jamaican. She's Haitian. They're Haitian, right?
I'm not sure.
I know they're from, like, I know Memphis mentions that his mom is from the Caribbean. I did not notice her having a Caribbean accent in the first book. And then in this book, Aunt Octavia was all, like, having a Caribbean accent. I was like, did I miss something? I feel like she didn't sound like that in the first book.
I know, like, with audiobook narrators, they will often, like, I remember, like, I went to this audiobook narrator's, like, presentation, and she was talking about how, like, she'll often, like, by the end of a book, like, have finally the character, like, how she wants to do their voice nailed in, and it's, like, a choice they have to make, like, are we going to redo the entire audiobook or just move forward? So it might have been like that.
Wait, someone else commented, did Aunt Octavia get an accent in this book? Like,
so what I think happened is I think January Lavoie did the first audiobook. Obviously they kept her, and so I think she made Octavia and like Memphis's mom just sound like an African American like women. And then I think what happened was this is the first book that mentions them being Caribbean, and I think then January Lavoie was like, oh, probably should put an accent on that.
I don't think I even noticed it, but I also listened to it on like a very fast speed.
part of it. I kind of noticed that too because I remember getting a little confused because of the accents in the scenes with Memphis. So that sounds totally possible.
Sounds like you can talk about the epilogue. What happens in the epilogue?
With Sam's mom, isn't it?
Oh, that's the epilogue?
Miriam.
Okay, for me, like the book, I finished it literally the other day, but like I feel like for me, the ending, I just thought that was all. I didn't realize we were in the epilogue. I thought it was just like kept going.
Miriam, I remember that scene just blowing my mind because I think that was like the first like obviously we get bits and pieces of like the government conspiracy stuff, but to actually see what was happening was really cool, I thought. And also gave me hope for Sam.
Yeah.
Like, I just really want Sam to find his mom.
He deserves it so much.
Yeah. I just want all the best things for all these characters, and I know that that's not going to happen.
No, I'm so scared for King of Crows, man.
I don't, especially with what happens at the end of Before the Devil Breaks You. I was like, well, she's not holding back at all.
I'm so scared.
Yeah, I think King of Crows. I keep wanting to call it King of Scars. King of Crows is going to demolish all of us.
I'm scared.
It's been so long since I read like new Diviner stuff, so it's gonna be crazy for it to like come to a close.
Yeah, I agree. Because we've been waiting for so long.
So long. I love the comment, I would die for Sam Lloyd. I will be his mom. I could be Miriam.
We'll all be Sam's mom. Are there any other like key things we really want to? We have a few more minutes left. If there's anything anyone in the comments wants to talk about, or anything you guys want to touch on in the books that we haven't gotten to yet, do we want to talk about Mabel at all? I mean, we kind of talked about her, but just to kind of bust on her.
I mean, this is not Mabel's book. Mabel's book is the third book. That's when she really shines.
Oh, I can say something that I don't know if either of you will relate to this, but I love as like someone with a psych degree, I love that Libba Bray incorporates Carl Jung into the story, because he is, if you don't know, or anyone who's watching, he was a psychologist who did a lot of dream analysis. And so the first time I read it, and this time, like, I really appreciated because I've learned so much about him in school. And I thought it was so cool that like Evie, Theta, and Mabel like go to try and attend the lecture to help Henry, and they talk to him. Like it's very cool for me because he's an influential figure in my studies. And the fact that he like was alive at the time, I just thought it was such a cool thing to incorporate into the story. So I guess that goes along with like the historical aspect.
Yeah, that's cool.
Great.
Also, Monica, is there a reason that you wrote in our private chat set for things to talk about the introduction of Christina Aguilera?
What is before too?
I think I meant Christian America.
Not autocorrect. I was just like Christina Aguilera.
I noticed it said that, and I noticed I thought it was out of place. It didn't occur to me until now that
changing the subject
was not alive in the 1920s.
You missed the whole Christina Aguilera plot. I like this comment. I also thought it was really clever how Ling was so enamored by Jake Marlowe despite him being super racist. I love it.
I hate Jake Marlowe. He's one of my favorite characters in the whole series.
Yeah, everybody buckle up before the devil breaks you.
I also find him like really fascinating. I also like in some ways I feel like Libba predicted this. Like he kind of represents, I mean, in a lot of ways he represents like obviously people of that time period who were like seen as like these super progressive, important people, but who like were also supporters of eugenics and stuff. But like even today, when you look at like the innovators of today are the people who we see as these innovators who are secretly very have a lot of issues themselves. Like if you look at like I feel like the best sort of analogy for him or parallel for him today would be like Elon Musk.
Yeah. Is Elon Musk racist?
He does a lot of like problematic things in like the sense that, especially just in the sense that he's a billionaire in general, which is evil in its own making. And it's like the type of innovation that I think Marlowe is doing, which is sort of like innovation without a moral compass.
I totally agree with you on that.
Oh yeah, that's so true. Yeah, especially with the flashback. Yeah, with the letter and like talking about how he would take money from like KKK people just to like keep going, even though Rotka and stuff is like, we should definitely not do that.
Yeah. Or even just like coming from like the tech world and like Silicon Valley and like I don't know, just all of that. I find the way that like innovation has always been done, I feel like has for a long time not really thought about actual people and more just like, you know,
it's like that app we talked about in the last live show. Remember we talked about that app?
Oh,
that
yeah.
Like, what if we match people based up on their like genetics and their health? And then it was like, that's so ableist.
Yeah, that's literally eugenics.
Yeah, it's erratic.
Congrats, Harvard.
I was like, my family does not have a good health history. I would not be allowed to date on this app.
Thoughts on this? I actually like, what do you think? Because I honestly don't remember anything as far as like the plot or like the stovepipe hat dude in the third book, but as like far as like the second book, like what do you think is his motive? Like what do you think about him?
I think he's just like an evil entity that's like looking to gain more. I look at him sort of like he is behind a lot of like because obviously there's this paranormal like fantasy element.
Yeah.
Where it's like I feel like it's him. He's sorry, I'm trying to gather all my thoughts. He's like representative of like he's kind of like behind war and all of that, like a lot of like America's stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like weaving in like that. And so I think Naughty John's only connection to him is that through the stovepipe hat man, people are able, or ghosts are able to get power from him because he's like a source of evil.
Yeah.
And so because a point that Libba Bray brings up a lot, it like even with burying Wai Mei's body and like trying to put her to rest, every culture has their own like elements of like witchcraft, paranormal, that sort of thing. And so I feel like because basically Naughty John was from like a religion like that his parents like made up based off of a thing where they were like, oh, you're going to be the beast, and they like made that book. And that's when like Evie, you know, she captures him with a little medallion because it's her religious relic. You know what I mean? So I think it's just like Naughty John like got power from him because he's like an all powerful like evil being.
Yeah. I kind of want her. That's where I feel like it's maybe going to go. I kind of hope that that's not the direction she goes in.
What do you want?
So my fan theory, my fan dream is that we create the man in the stovepipe hat like as a like world or as a country. Or that I don't know, like I kind of just want something more than just like
I'm into this. This makes sense. You are my theory. I trust that Libba Bray is going to do something like what you're saying, or like something equally as deep. Because I'm just like, he's just an evil being, and you're like, he was created because of war and petulance. I'm like, oh yeah,
Pipe hat is all of us.
he like grew from negative energy of humankind.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm hoping that there is like something different there, something more there.
There probably is, especially because whenever Memphis uses his powers, it talks about like him seeing his ancestors and stuff. So I know that a lot of these powers come from like a deep place.
Yeah.
So he probably was a result of like the evilness of the world, and he like came into being from that or something.
Yeah. I also like, I'm so interested to see like how the government stuff is going to continue to grow.
Yeah.
I don't know. We didn't talk about this at all, about James.
Oh, the comb scene.
The comb scene.
My heart. I feel so bad for Evie in that scene. Oh my God.
Yeah, there's a lot. I feel like the third book, like, we'll have a lot more to discuss.
Yeah.
Right.
About
he's a little more prevalent in the third book.
But yeah, I just all of the like hints at like all these characters that were like background, like James and Miriam.
Yes.
It's wild. Oh yeah, I just really liked this comment. I wanted to share it.
It shows a drastic person's actions. Thoughts can change as a particular person or group in life. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. She just put so much care and caution into what she's writing. You know, it's really a series that makes you think.
Yeah, kind of. This is calling back to something we were talking about earlier with just the like learning about different people in this time period through the sides and the different like omnipotent like. You know what I'm talking about, like the asides.
Yeah.
One I was just thinking about was I totally forgot about that one where it talked about that guy the black soldier who had fought in World War I, and he came back with his medals, and people told him to stop wearing his uniform and his medals. But he's like, but I fought for the war, and it's like I deserve to wear these. And then he got killed for it, and like so I feel like that ties into what that person just said about like you've decided that this person isn't human, even though they literally fought and like were alongside people dying for our country, they don't count as a war hero.
Yeah, I agree. Even like the depiction of veterans in this book,
Yeah.
I thought was really like that's something that I feel like we don't really even talk about in our history. Like we talk a lot about the wars that we fought, but we don't talk about the way that we completely let down like every veteran after these wars.
Right.
And I like that she depicts that throughout all of the books, and just like even with James and like his friends. And I think like in the first book she touches on it in the epilogue a bit, the whole idea of like these boys being sent off to this war that they're like kind of sold a dream of. And like her breaking that down I think is really good and like heartbreaking.
Again, is she a diviner? Because we're talking about the draft and stuff these days.
Oh, Libba.
Oh my God. Her mind.
It's too powerful.
All right. It is now 7:02. Are there any final thoughts before we log off?
I'm super excited to read before the double breaks you.
Same. We'll probably have information about our live show for Before the Double Breaks You and King of Crows coming soon. So we'll probably do Before the Double Breaks You around like mid-February-ish, and then King of Crows pretty soon after that. I assume we'll all be excited to finish. So yeah,
us on Instagram and Twitter, you'll definitely see all of our announcements.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks everybody for joining and for watching. Thanks Sarah and Emma for being here. Happy birthday, Sarah, again.
Oh yeah, it's my birthday.
Yeah.
Totally forget about that.
I was gonna force you to listen to me and Emma sing happy birthday to you live.
Oh, I wanted to do that too. We'll save you.
I'm sorry. Every person who's asked me how old I was turning, every time I told them I was 28, they were like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah, I know I look 20."
All right, thanks guys. Have a good rest of your night.
Joining.
Bye.
Bye.